We're happy you've joined us for the study and discussions on the Emerald Tablets by Billy Carson and other authors. Parisha, an ancient text interpreter and tablet reader, will be hosting this weekly event. She will be joined by associate speakers from the LCFHD each session, and lines will be open for discussions. So join us on Mondays at 5:30 Pacific Mountain Time as we complete the book, and it will be on our YouTube channel, LCFHD, and check out our blog at emeraldtabletstudies.com. We will schedule to have anyone that has further studies to join us on the session and share your knowledge. Now here is our host.
Thank you very, very much. Welcome, everybody. I want to do a few housekeeping things while we're getting everybody up on the screen. And that's that I would like you to go to the YouTube that's actually posted at the beginning here and actually get that out, send it out, and encourage people to come and actually get this information out. Any of you who've come to actually participate in this with me, you are avatars of messages. You're here to get the message out. You're here to do communication. You're teachers. And how do you do that? Well, you may not go out and do public programs and all of the other things that's happening. But at this point, what you can do is make sure that you're out there putting the word out. And what we're discussing here and what you are actually participating with here is important. Don't take for granted what we do and what we know is known by everyone, because it is not. So please actually let people know, put people on, sharing your Facebook and stuff, to actually YouTube with us and actually be here with us. I want you to get with me on page 62. Well, actually it's 63. So go in your book to 63. At the bottom of 63, okay, Thoth said that time after time, place, they first created bodies so that they might be filled with the spirit of life. 100 years out of each 1,000 must the life-giving light flame forth on their bodies, of quickening, awakening the spirit of life. They're in the circle from eon to eon among men. They're in the halls of light. They lie sleep. Free flows their spirit through the bodies of men. Time after time, while their bodies lie sleeping, incarnate they in the bodies of men, teaching and guiding onward and upward, out of the darkness into the light. Okay, I love how Billy has actually taken to this and has actually expounded on it. And what he says here, you can see here in these passages that the Atlantean lords have the ability to occupy biological avatars while their bodies are in a state of deep meditation in the halls of Amenti. Regeneration, quickening, awakening could also be a prerequisite to entering a higher form of consciousness that enables the believer to fall into a deep meditation. The passage concludes that regardless of the state of meditation, the believer will always be moving onward and upward toward the light. What do you make of that? I mean, what, and I really want, this is an exchange call here, so talk to me. What do you think that means, and how do you relate to that? How can that concept fit what we are and what we're doing? How do you feel about that? I feel very comfortably knowing that that's who we are. You have an avatar body and you're existing in a particular time dimension. Okay, so do you feel that when you're not in body, that your soul is out there kind of floating in the flow and the waves of consciousness? Or do you feel that even in the purpose of you not being in a body, where are you? What do you think is happening at this point? I feel this challenges us to reevaluate. I feel at this point, you know, with all of this said, and he's making sure that this information gets back to us. So in our day and time, we have something to understand our total existence on. So we're trying very hard, and everybody's working to not being the body, to actually know that you are energy and that you are spirit. And you're trying to say, okay, this body's not me. It's simply just a passage that I use in this experience. Okay. But where are you broadcasting from? Where do you think you're broadcasting from? Something about that. I don't see any hands. Come on, guys. Come with me here. Anybody here want to expound on that? Okay, this is you looking at a whole different kind of explanation about reincarnation. You know that. Okay, anybody? So we have Veronica that would like to share something. All right, Veronica, tell me what you're thinking about that.
I know that last week when we had this discussion of the Emerald Tablets, the thought came to me, came across about this is the avatar body. And then having seen the movie, that was something I could relate to in terms of avatar body that I had never thought of before. And your question of where we're broadcasting from, this is another piece. We're broadcasting from the halls of the Menti. For those of us here, certainly, or not just here, but those of us who are on this call, most of us anyway. And that excites me in terms of, for so long, I thought the body was the total width of everything. That there was no other consciousness, there was no other being or knowing. And now I know differently. Now I know the body as this word avatar, or I know the body now as the altar. And I know now that there is an observer that's now communicating in communion with this body that I didn't know before. And this has just totally opened my mind up to getting out of the box, if I could say it that way.
Yeah. This makes so much sense to me because of how I was raised and all of my beginnings. Okay, that in everything we say as those who came before us. So actually knowing that we are the elders, we are the wisdom keepers, we are those who came before, which actually means this. So there's, in saying that, there is a mental mindset with that we know that what we are in reality is really not here, that this is all moving as some kind of expression of it, okay? And that when we actually speak, and the terms we use is our elders or our grandmothers and grandfathers, we're actually talking about what I've just read you here, the Tatha say. We know that somewhere, and we give it a word, Galunlati, we know that there is the reality of what we are, and that here in this dimension, in this world, okay, this is how we're experiencing that. And that everything we do is a feedback to them. So we know that we're working in cooperation all the time with this fully conscious, evolved being that we are. And so this really struck me so very powerfully when I read this, because it's actually saying that right now, somewhere in whatever you believe, the avatar that you are, or this mobile unit of you, this engineered body of you, is actually experiencing itself in the world as feedback to a much, much greater consciousness. And he's saying that they are resting in the meditative state or the unconscious state in the halls of Amenti. Well, like I said, that doesn't, to me, it's not a foreign statement. It's like I listen to that and it's like, yeah, now this is making more sense, right? And so I wondered how much does that change or challenge your thoughts of reincarnation, of exactly, you know, what is this life in its cumulative form to you? It's like working with the fact that we are not the body. So we say, okay, well, what is the body? Then why, and so we, in the science and the quantum field of it all, we know we have an observer. And what are they talking about? They're talking about this. The observer is this. Okay. And then we have the observer, which is actually interacting in a communion with the body. And so that's why we have these dual conversations in our head all the time. We'll say one thing and we get a response. We'll say another thing, we'll get another response. So that we're actually in that dual conversation all the time. And for many, they've actually extended that conversation to realizing that instead of it being what I'm calling in a scientific term, observer, they actually see it as God, that they're communicating and having these conversations with God. And there's really no fault you can find with that. You are talking to the direct source. And how is it that we define God? We define it as the source. Okay, so when we're looking at this, how are we, for me, I deal in all these ancient civilizations. And one of the things I want to talk to you about is a recent information and dig that come out about some of these people. Okay, and I'm always looking at that, but it's only valued for me if it helps me understand where I'm at. What about my world? What about me right now in this world? Okay. And as my time's ticking away and I realize I'm going to be leaving that, what did I really accomplish? And what was that all about? And, where do I go from here? And the practices of what I do in my spiritual life is, I live through my death every day. And I know that every day is a new life in a new world. Okay, and I make it that. So I don't let yesterday follow me into today. So there's different things that we're doing in our own, exploring our own spirituality, that this comes in and it's like, how does this set with what you believe and how you're living this? Because as far as I'm concerned, I have no contradiction or thought of it. If you're here and you're a body, you have been sent here and you exist as intention. And as intention, whose intention? And of what master do we have that lays here? There's many of you maybe know of this and don't know of this, but many years, if you've heard of the Eastern teachings of Babaji. Babaji was a body that never decomposed, though he was in the death state. And he was viewed by many, many numbers of people. And yet he appeared physically in other places. And everybody just said, oh, that's mysticism and that's weird and that's them people over there and they do a lot of things different. No, it was real. Documentation shows it's real. There was physical evidence of him being physically someplace else while he's laying in the instrument of the state of no life. And so, if we can't begin to embrace this and actually begin to help understand ourselves better, we're just reading fiction. And this is not a book of fiction. This is a book of fact and research. So it's up to each one of us to explore it then and helping it acknowledge more of what we understand about ourselves. And Toth preserved this very, very well. The tablets are in very, very safe security places right now. I know that. So this information is something that we need to make personal. And I say to you, in doing that, when you read this, where did you go with it? Did you just read it and it's okay and you go on to the next whatever? Or do you actually say at this point, you understand how that actually affects your beliefs of reincarnation? That somewhere, in other teachings, it's considered, that people are laying in greater places, or we are the experience, the dream time experience of one of the greater consciousnesses. Well, all of that kind of has to have some place that it connects. And I feel it all connects here. So anybody else got something you want to say? Give me a show of hands. All right, Mike Delar, they're sitting in Montreal, Canada. Hey, babe, good to see you. There, you're good. We can hear you. No, it don't show him muted anymore. Are you muted on yours, Mike? Okay, they're looking to see why. Our side says you're unmuted, but are you unmuted on your computer or something? He's unmuted. You guys got that going?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
unmuted.
There we go.
There we got you.
Something wrong with my microphone, I think.
Okay.
All right. So my question was this: when I read this the first time, I kind of got the impression, what hit me, the image I got was all these holy people throughout history, and forever, you know, all these people who we've considered special or holy, they were these guys. They were these guys just reincarnating into human bodies to help give us a little kick along. And to me, it was like, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. They're obviously trying to help us. So what do? They reincarnate into somebody holy and wise that we respect. We take a little bit at a time, and over time we get better and better, or closer and closer to being, you know, free. Does that make sense?
I hear you. Well, it makes sense, but what I'm hearing is that you're not good enough to be one of them. And you know I'm going to challenge that, right?
I knew that was coming.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I know I was going to say I knew that was coming.
Okay.
That you were going to challenge me.
Yeah, I know. Okay, first and foremost, let's go to some Buddhism, okay? And one of the things in Buddhism is that when we talk about the Buddhists, the different Buddhists, we actually know that a Buddha has many avatars working in the earth. So automatically in Buddhism, they already are living this. This is part of the base of their particular beliefs, okay? And so as much as I've worked with the Tibetan Buddhists and actually been proclaimed as a reincarnation of Tara and all of that, never made any sense to me until this, I could grasp and understand this. So that there could be as many Taras as needed. There's no exclusive one Tara, okay? And so they can create as many avatars as they need and they send out, okay? For years, you all that have worked with me know explain our relationship is your buffalo hearts. Well, I'm bringing it, the term I'm using is one of indigenous understanding because of my indigenous roots, okay? So, but it's the same thing. It's just all these different language, all these different words that are saying the same thing, okay? Okay, let's look at us. And I'm just asking you to consider this. I'm not trying to prophesize here and change your beliefs, but listen to this, okay? How many of us are there, us being people like you and me, willing to take time out of our week to sit down and look at this book, talk about it, explore it, exchange opinions and reflections on it? How many are there? So we represent a percentage. And as far as I'm concerned, these are my beliefs. I believe you are them. I believe the only reason you would come to this call, which you would come to this interest, is because you are them. You are the avatars. You are the Buddhas. You are the Bodhisattvas. And as long as we keep making this somebody else, my whole situation with religions, and by no means am I anti-Christ, okay? But in religions and how religion is given to us is that we're never good enough. That there's only one that was chosen and the rest of us are some universal, or the universe is some miscarriage. I don't know what you want to call it, but the rest of us don't matter. Okay, and that's never made any sense to any of us. Everybody on this call, that's never made any sense to us. So then you have to go the next step, because look at the millions that it makes sense to, and they're willing to accept that. To us, it's like we have to keep looking, we have to keep searching, we keep reaching. And I feel that defines us. I feel that defines us and makes us the extension. We are the avatars of these masters and these geniuses. You hear something that's, okay, somebody else would look at this book and say, weird. I mean, I tried to give this book away to a lot of people, and the fact that they saw Thoth actually pictured on the front of this book with a long beak, they threw the book in the garbage can. I was in a restaurant. I actually gave away 50 copies. I did a little presentation, gave 50 copies. When I started out, the maitre d' asked me, ma'am, would you like those books back? I mean, what books? Okay, well, some of them threw their books in the wastebasket. Okay, what that tells me, and listen, while I'm doing the presentation, it'd say, well, it's a monster, it's a demon. Look at it, you know? And it's like, okay, that's just an expression. It's trying to tell you something. That head is nothing other than an explanation. It's not the head of Thoth, okay? And when you're talking to hard mindsets, you're not going to get that out. So I knew I was taking a shot in the dark, and I was willing to do 10 of my 50 books back. So 10 people walked out of there thinking that we were talking about a demon. Okay, the others that had never ever showed any interest in something like this, they could see some of what Thoth was saying as justifying their scriptures, especially the way Billy Carson does it here. Billy puts it in Christian context and actually puts it in a framework that says this is how it's said in the Bible and this is what it said here. So people were liking that. So they went along with that. So they would take the book and further look at it. Okay, when you first saw this book, did that cover scare you away? The title probably brought you more interest, and you have to ask yourself, why? Why me? Why would I want to go read a book that has some character like that on the front of it? And what are these emerald tablets? What is that all about? Okay, and then at that point, when you started reading it, where did you go with it? Where did you begin to identify with it? So my whole thing about all this is when we all begin to understand and become what we are. Okay, I say this most often, and there's many people in this room with me that hear me say this all the time. Okay, crows know how to be crows. Puppies grow up to be dogs. Okay, kittens grow up to be cats. Children of God, what do you grow up to be? So the more we make that something we're talking about somebody else, more, Michael, you say, you know, that you can understand that they send people back to make a difference. Why not you? You know, when you see things and you know that something needs to be done, how easy is it for you to walk away? It's not easy, is it? And in most cases, you take time to do something about it. Okay? You're kind of extraordinary, beloveds. You're different. You do care. And you do want to know. So then you have to start saying that obviously somewhere in all of this, you have a greater connection to this than maybe the average person that you're here for, and that you are here to help them understand. You are here to lift consciousness. And when you start doing that, you begin to see a world change. Here at 80 years old, I can look back at 55 years of doing this. And I can say today, when I'm seeing the changes, that every time somebody called me a quack, a weirdo, insane, whatever, and I just kept moving forward. Today, quantum physics is a household word. 55 years ago, when I started talking about it, I was nuts and I was crazy. Didn't stop me. Okay. And so today, as I watch things happening, I realize I've been planting seeds for 55 years and I'm not alone. I'm not alone. You have too. I don't care if you're talking to groups, but you've talked to somebody, or you affiliate with people who like to talk about this. And all of that amounts to something, and that's exactly what Thoth is saying here. And when you begin to live that way, you begin to respect yourself. You respect yourself in a way you've never allowed yourself to feel that worth. You are the chosen. We don't get in any other way. Intentionally, we are sent forward. Your fingerprint is like no other. I can find you by your fingerprint, no matter where you're at. You're individual. And that had to have intention, and you have to have purpose to be of that. So when we're looking at that, why can't we entertain that we are actually the physical avatars of this wisdom, this master, this understanding that's laying somewhere in the greater consciousness, feeding, and is our lifeline. It helps, we can prove it through science now. It's not something we have to doubt because we can prove it. Exactly what Toth is saying here is exactly what I can prove in quantum physics and go into biology as well. So the reason I took to the sciences was to prove what's being said here, and that we can do that today. So in us exploring that, pay attention and read it over to where you're not so hesitant to maybe share on the Zoom call we're doing. But how do you feel about that? How do you relate to, are you willing to let yourself be worthy of being one of those avatars? And then see what it begins to help, right? Okay, I have somebody here that wants to talk, and that's, so we have Geraldine in Sydney, Australia. Geraldine?
Hello, yes. A key part of when you were saying that, I realized that I was doing some Googling, so-called randomly, and what came up was Tesla's 369. And then what came up, just the magic of the numbers. This is without looking at the book first. This is what I was looking at before looking at the chapter for the Emerald Tablets. And then the next video that came up was how to draw the seed of life. And it really showed the circles, then the next circle, then the next circle. And I could just dismiss that as, well, that was a nice random thing. That then when I went to the Emerald Tablets chapter, there's a whole lot on 369. And it really helped me this time with the geometry showing that the 9 is steady. The number always comes back to 9, yet the 3 and the 6 oscillate backwards and forwards and gives that duality. And then I could say, well, the next video that randomly came up being the flower of life and how to draw it and really show it. And then in this chapter, we've got us as an egg or as a cell, the cell that then how it multiplies to become the physical form is that shape of the seed of life. And I notice there is a tendency that one could have to dismiss it, but with what you've just said, it really reinforces knowing the Emerald Tablets and embracing that. It is the greater beingness that we are gives us this information all the time. So what I saw wasn't random at all. It was totally appropriate to where we're at. And then to acknowledge other people when they do something or find something, and to acknowledge in them that magnificence that is them, that the spirit. I feel that's definitely a role as well, to see it in other people and reflect it back.
Okay, very, very good. Thank you. Trina Cooper, I see you over there. Could you possibly read below on page 64? Could you read to us that paragraph that Billy also adds to the particular tablet verses I just read?
Mm-hmm.
Have your book in front of you? It's 64 at the bottom.
The one that says you can see here, or many believe.
It says many believe that the
Okay.
Anunnaki.
I can do that. Many believe that the Anunnaki and the Atlanteans genetically modified proto-modern humans on this planet to become Homo sapiens sapiens. Prior to the proliferation of our species, the Earth was being more and more populated by two other species of wise people, Homo sapiens adultu and Homo sapiens neanderthalensis. Oddly enough, it is generally accepted by most scientists today that Homo sapiens sapiens were the primary occupants of planet Earth about 50,000 years ago, a number that fits dramatically in Thoth's narrative. This general modification significantly increased the modern human DNA capacity for gathering and maintaining information. What modern scientists are calling worthless DNA is anything but. There's a message written on that DNA, and it was purposely disconnected by the Anunnaki to prevent humans from reaching supreme higher realms of consciousness and superior intelligence. You are a breathing, walking hard drive with trillions of terabytes of data on your biological hard drive. At Harvard's Weiss Institute, 2 geneticists and bioengineers have basically relegated DNA as comparative to a digital storage device. 1 gram of DNA can store 7,000 gigabytes of data. The work, carried out by George Church and Siri Kosuri, treats DNA as just another digital storage device. That means there is enough room for information storage on a smidgen of DNA that would fit on the tip of a frog's tail. Check up on the fascinating aspects of these Harvard scientists at this link.
Yes. So when you begin to accept, how massive we are, you have to realize how very successful the suppression has been to actually maintain human slavery and human obedience. And with that, when we realize that this is a reality we can prove by science, that's why he's got this here, and what it is that you've been taught in school, what your parents believe nonetheless, okay? And then looking at that and how much we don't know about ourselves, that we actually demean ourselves, then you have to begin to do a reevaluation of exactly the importance of you every day. And that even when you think you are actually having an effect, and with that beginning to understand that you can change and make a difference and can actually be part of what needs to happen. I've asked them to put on the website an actual article that you actually sent in, Robbie, one of some recent research that was found. Do you have that in front of you? Because I'd like us to talk about that. I mean, when we start saying, and there's a lot of people that have all kinds of different stories about the Anunnaki, okay, and I'm okay with that. Everybody has had some experience. There's, if we live in the field of duality, then we have to accept that there's good, there's bad, okay? So I'm not trying to change anybody's particulars on it. I just know that the involvement that I've had very recently in my life, because listen, I had no involvement with the Anunnaki up until about 3 years ago, okay? And what I've experienced from these 3 years is I have very personal interaction with what this information is, and have actually had some extraordinary experiences. But with this, us actually looking at this, and we don't have any particular record. I mean, in my peoples, we talk about the Nunihai. The Cherokees have a word that says Nunihai. We know there's little people. So we know there's people that run anywhere from about 8 inches to about 12 to 14 inches high. And they actually exist in the forest of my homelands. Okay. So I don't have a problem at all understanding that there could be a human being that is 36 feet tall. Okay. And that recently in Ecuador, there have actually been ruins to where they have multiple skeletons that are actually showing human form skeletons that are 36 feet tall. Okay, and that there are some groups that say by satellite, the reason they found this and how they know about all this is that they've seen activity there. Okay, so like people like you and I will say, okay, well, what is that? You know what I mean? Other people will say, no, it's just stupid, it's crazy, it's whatever. But actually, I want, Robbie, you to share what you actually found on that website and what it is. And you guys have posted it on our Facebook, right?
Yes.
So if you go to our Facebook, you'll actually see the link so that you can go in and get all this information yourself.
And
Okay.
I've been posting the Facebook link in our chat.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Robbie, can you unmute
Yes.
Robbie? Engineer, can you
Oh.
unmute Robbie?
You can hear me? Okay, great. Yes, it's on a website called Archaeology World, and they've discovered this in the Ecuador region of the Amazon. Actually, they found a few different skeletons in that area, but this one particular one is, and what they say is that the skeleton has normal bone health, meaning that it was not suffering from giantism syndrome or anything like that. It was perfectly normal and perfectly healthy, just very, very tall. And it's from an area that the local people call the Cemetery of the Gods, because it's a region that, you know, in legend, they say was inhabited by giants. So in the same article, they discussed a little bit about other skeletons that have been discovered anywhere up to 36 feet so far. So I actually did some research into, you know, giants around the world, and there are many, many different cultures that talk about it in their legends. Like there were Celtic giants, there were, the Greeks had giants, the Native Americans and the South Americans had giants in their legends. The Mesopotamian people had a lot of stories about giants, including there is an ancient Sumerian tablet called the Seated Giant. And what it shows is this, supposedly he's a king, he's sitting on a throne, sitting down, and the people that are in front of him, that are lined up in front of him, don't even come up to as high as his kneecap. So that just shows how far back in history they were recorded. In China, in India, there are stories about giants. In the Bible, there are tons and tons of references all throughout the Bible. In, you know, Genesis, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Ezekiel, Isaiah, all throughout the Bible, there are many different references to, you know, a very tall species of people that lived in that time and that they had interaction with quite a bit.
So there are giants amongst us. Right?
There are giants amongst us.
Thank you
Hey,
for
Robbie.
sharing that.
Robbie,
Go ahead.
do you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
If you've seen any of the ancient alien programs that are available through Gaia, there's a whole show on the giants of Sardinia that's very, very interesting. That talks just to what you're talking about.
But the good of this, okay? So we could say, okay, why do we need to talk about that on a Monday afternoon? All right, how does that change your reality to actually know? Now we have scientific proof of things that aren't normal conversations. Nothing that's being taught to our kids in school, okay? As far as I'm concerned, this is a science, and it should be in the science, and our children should actually be getting this information, not after they get to be adults and not satisfied with the system and then goes looking for it. Our young people need to know this now. How different could your life have been had you actually known what you know today? All of us know it would have been a totally different story, because we went through formative emotional years of just believing the system, and in some cases being maybe totally entrapped in religions that had nothing but heaven and hell to offer. So when you start getting in further to this and you start hearing that, then you begin to see all kinds of obvious opportunities that maybe you'll pick up the next time you go around, okay? And then we go over to page 67. And since you're showing a lot of ambition there, Michael, I'm going to ask you to read Toth's message there. It's on 67, mid page. And Toth said, they're in the hall of life.
And Thoth said, there in the hall of life, filled with their wisdom, known not to the races of men, living forever neath the cold fire of life, sit the children of light. Times there are when they awaken, come from the depths to be lights among men, infinite they among finite men. Continue. The Atlantean lords, no, okay.
Go ahead.
The Atlantean lords had the ability to astral project from their regenerating avatars and enter the matrix, so to speak. They had the ability to engage humankind even from the astral form. They would keep their avatars young by maintaining a strict regime of physical time inside the halls of Amenti regeneration chambers. Remember, Thoth claims to have descended 10 times into the chamber while spending 100 years inside the chamber each time. That means he has spent a total of 10,000 years in regeneration of his physical avatars. These lords also have unlimited access to the halls of Amenti for use at any time that they see fit. I had just one question there.
So
If he went down 10 times
Go
and it's
ahead.
100 each time, isn't that 1,000, not 10,000?
yeah, little
Okay.
mathematical problem there that an engineer would find. Yeah,
Okay. Do you want me to
10
keep
times
reading?
100 is. Yeah. Well, I want to discuss it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So when we're looking at what he's saying here, okay, and there's a little bit of a, Billy's made a little mathematical flaw there. Okay, but when we're looking at this and we're realizing that here, what I love about this is Thoth is not saying he was one of the original masters. He worked at becoming masters like you and I, trying to understand. I don't know so much know that in my life I've been seeking to be a master more than just understand. It's like so much didn't make any sense to me. It wasn't about making more of myself, but just trying to understand why I can't get answers to the questions that just don't have answers. Okay. And so when we look at this and we understand, he was a son of man and made it to become one of these advanced masters. I just see it again renewing the faith for us to continue with our particular searches and our goals and finding and making, allowing there to be an extraordinary existence to us being in the world. The 9 to 5 has never satisfied me. I love doing business, so I've had many successes. But living whatever the ordinary life is, go to work, come home, do the thing, never fit. I never ever fit in that, okay? And I constantly was a problem to everybody who said they know something because I asked 10 questions they couldn't answer, okay? So I become more of the agitator more than probably the complimentary, okay? But I so thirst for information, for understanding, something that makes sense. And what's being said here is it makes sense to me that we're in a world that we can have more control of than what we've been told. We totally believe that we have to account to our government. We totally believe we have to account to our religions. So if you start looking at everything that we have to account to, we are still suppressed. And at this point, we are not functioning as liberated, intelligent beings. And so that we're still trying to get out of the slavery niche that the Anunnaki engineered these bodies for. And this body took off of its own. Organically as it is, it took off on its own and has evolved to where we're at today. And that we have on our brain, because I've done brain research for 45 years, trying to understand why we think like we think and why we don't do something better with what we're thinking, okay? And what we have is 5 layers of new cellular levels on our brain. So there's tissue, 5 layers of different tissues on our brain, showing the 5 worlds that indigenous people speak of, that we have existed and evolved through 5 worlds, okay? And we have the tissue to show the brain has expanded itself in those kind of cycles. Okay, so obviously along the way, wherever Inky decided to give us more opportunity than what Enlil wanted us to have, we've been given the ability to advance this body and to allow ourselves to become educated, intelligent beings. And so when we look at this, this is us. This is for your opportunity. You have something you want to say, Mike? Is there, Michael, were you trying to say something?
No, I wasn't trying to say something, but I do have a question. When he talks about the cold fire of life, that terminology hit me, but I don't really understand it. When he says, you know, in the second line there, that they're living forever neath the cold fire of life, the children of light. What is the cold fire of life?
Okay, I only know of my own experience with the blue flame. And in the blue flame initiation, I expected to feel heat and I felt cold. Okay, and so when we come to understand how we exist and our gravity and all the science that makes up the Earth's atmosphere around us, how I've taken that is how he's explaining the very fact of our universe being, if we leave the surface of the Earth, we go into a very cold existence. I mean, there's nothing but freeze temperatures out there, right? But that's what we call our universe. So I'm thinking he's talking a bigger picture here and saying that forever beneath. So he's saying beneath the cold fire of life. That would be our universe and space that we have.
Okay.
Now that's only my interpretation. There might be others here. If anybody else has a thought on that, because that's how I saw it when I read it, Mike.
Okay, thanks.
And when he's talking about sits with the children of light, you know, we don't you see the reflection of yourself as the children of light? So, you know, who are we that we're sitting here actually interested in looking at this? So I'm hoping that all of you begin to personalize this a little bit more. Okay. Now I see that Gabby, you're saying you have something you want to share. I don't like it that it's the same people each week. We need to find more of you that are sitting back and not talking. We need you to come forward and talk. So go ahead, Gabby. Okay, now you're unmuted.
Okay. And we talked earlier about recognizing who we are and what we can do. I had people for a long time come to me and say, look, whenever you come, it's so peaceful. We love being around you. I've worked with children for a long time, and wherever I go, the children just come. Like, even if I don't know them, the children just come to me. And I'm not 100% there, but quite often I have recognized that this is what I do with the greatest humility, you know, that this is what I can do for people. I can spread great love and peace wherever I go. And when I recognize that, it has helped me to actually do it more, not just wander around the day and be loving here and peaceful there as it comes. I've actually been able to focus and go out and say, okay, I'm going to the shops now. I'm going to hold that because I know it can affect people around me. And it's been with great, as I said, humility, and it's just beauty to watch, because I watch people and I go, they're feeling it. You know, and then of course there's other times where I go, oh, nah, not really. So, but yeah, I'm making progress with that, and it's beautiful. It gives me more purposeful action in life. Like, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, who is the Chris down there that you don't have up? I'm looking at a number of people, and I have the usual people we hang around with. Okay, Melissa, you always have something good to add. Okay, Gary, I see you sitting there. You're well-traveled, well-read and everything. You got to have input on this. So how many years have you been studying this? You surely have something to say. So I'm looking at all of you sitting back and just listening, and it's like, no, this is time. We're asking you to put your stuff in it. Ask a question, contradict something you don't accept. And Kay, the same. You're all here with us. you know, it's just the usual ones of us talking, which is usually how it happens. And I'm saying, no, there's a lot of you that I'd like to hear what your reflection on this is and share with us and put your energy into it with us. So, you know, all you have to do is raise your hand like this and it lets us know you want to say something and we can do that. Okay, Gary says he wants to say something.
Well, grandmother,
That's
I'm
my
a little
guy.
behind
So
in my
Gary,
reading.
what do you want to share?
Even though Trina's helped me out by sending me some stuff, I haven't made the time to read these chapters, so that's why I'm doing more listening than reading. I don't have the book, but I will say this about Thoth. The first time that I came across Thoth was in my readings of the secret, the Flower of Life, what is it? The Ancient Secret and Flower of Life, book 1 and 2. And, you know, they talked about Thoth in that book. I'm sure a lot of people on this call have read those books. But that was my first introduction to Thoth and his work. But I've listened to a couple of Billy Carson interviews recently, but I really have been behind in the reading, so I'm not able to participate on the text that you guys are conversing on directly.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully Trina can get you some more copies and get them over there so that you can. Because you've been around and you've been in a lot of studies. Everybody has something along the line that actually can help you relate to this. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to stimulate you all to share. Now I see Mickey up in the corner over there. Mickey, you had your hand up. Can you share? Yeah.
Here,
Mickey's got her hand up. Can you? Yeah. Okay. We unmuted.
there we go.
Well,
Hi. I have my friends Holly and Davy with me. They're really enjoying all of us and the Emerald tablets. And they work a lot with the youngers, as we've talked about, the younger generation. And something that's been coming through really strong lately with the youngers is the concept of claiming their sovereignty. And with all that's going on in the 3D, they're not feeling supported. And they have a stronger feeling and connection to their higher self. So this is really in alignment with that. And there are a lot of discussions on claiming the sovereignty and not really, as grandmother, you've said before, you know, needing a bunch of archangels or ascended masters per se, but just understanding our higher selves. And one thing that's come up is, even for myself, to understand what individual sovereignty can be and what that can mean, and to claim that for no outside, in essence, negative influence.
okay.
And so with that, really a kind of a shooing away of those dark forces that have had power, but not creating that duality, not creating that dichotomy. So in essence, creating the new space with that no longer serves, and just allowing that darkness to fall away. So with that, claiming and empowering sovereignty through our Merkaba and all that's within our Merkaba is kind of a concept that seems to be unfolding.
Thank you much. Eileen, I see you sitting over there very comfortable, so you're going to sooner or later talking as well. Some of your, and I appreciate that you're on, but I also of you have taken time to find other answers and have more information. And then of this is to bring more to this page. I have names at the bottom that I can't see to, so I'm talking to my engineers right here. Who I see singing pines. Who are the other people on the bottom row there? Who is Chris?
They haven't shared their video.
Their
cameras on.
And we have,
okay, so we have some of you that's not cameras on, like Geraldine is not Maya, you're not on. See, Brooke, you have anything you want to add to what we're discussing? Shake your head, yes or no. Okay.
So it was about like he's talking about the wisdom. It has been different portions of the different chapters, as well as a few other books that I've read. But as somewhere said, where it says a lot, wisdom is power. So, and knowledge and wisdom is power. And as it said here, how the Anunnaki created us as more slaves to begin with. And so then we didn't have any way of getting knowledge. We were just essentially slaves. And like you were talking about with all the religions and stuff, we're just accepting what they're saying. We're not finding the knowledge to help us. So when you have the knowledge, you have the power to change yourself and help others too. So that's what I wanted to share.
Good. It's good to hear it from young people as well. Okay. But so we actually are looking at the fact that a lot of what's being referenced here, interest is you coming on with me each week and sharing your reflection of what you and how you could actually share with it. Okay. And I see that Trina, you're there someplace on the screen. I don't see Trina.
Yeah.
Okay, there I see her. You're on now. You've unmuted her, right? Okay, you're unmuted.
Okay, I just had one comment, and it was from the passage that I read that said there's a message written on that DNA, and it was purposely disconnected by the Anunnaki to prevent humans from reaching supreme higher realms of consciousness and superior intelligence. And when I read that, what I think is, well, if it was written on there and we become aware of it, we ought to be able to unwrite it. We ought to be able to erase it, take it off, and claim that piece of the DNA that we, that's there. So that was just a piece I just didn't want it to slide by.
And that's very, I totally identify with what you're saying, because and we keep making our minds become our own, and it's just not running through its hardwired existence. Every time we decide the way we look at something in a negative or harmful or even just an unpleasant, we're actually changing and helping that DNA plate to actually. So all of the things that when we remake ourselves, like we start to know that we are doing something that is not benefiting what we want out of life, and we make those, we are at that point having impact on the DNA. And they're giving us here, we have Barbara.
Yes, can you hear me?
Here, I see you. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, I just got to where I could get on Wi-Fi. I found the emerald tablets a number of years ago in a bookstore, and I just knew that I had to have it. Period. I had to. I didn't know why. I don't know if I don't know that I didn't ever heard of it. I've read parts of it. I haven't read it clear through, but I always just felt a connection with it, and that it seemed somehow like truth. And then in the reading today about, and your comments about all of us being here are either avatars or just of that. I've known for a long time that I'm here to hold the light and to be part of what's needed in these times. I don't always know what that is, but I trust, and some of the things that I've heard recently have resonated very much, that we are higher 5D dimensional beings in a 3D physical body, and that what I'm here for, and this makes sense, is to hold those vibrations, those 5D higher vibrations, well, being in the 3D and the body and the chaos, and not going into the polarity, and that there isn't something we need to necessarily do. It's a beingness. It's being who and what we are. I guess that's part of the sovereignty, owning our sovereignty. Yeah.
I want to thank you, and it's very good to know you, Barbara. Glad you're part of us.
Yeah, I came to Ohio and I volunteered at the Sundance there with Trina in Colorado, from the Colorado group. And yeah, I thank you. I've been enjoying being on the calls. Usually I haven't been able to, but I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for all that you do and be here on the planet now.
Well, to hear you say that you accept that you are here to hold the light, I could only wish that all of us begin to accept that and take the responsibility of what it takes to do that. So we do have to constantly observe ourselves and know that we're changing thoughts of destructiveness or bitterness or whatever. It's all the work we do inside. It's not out here, it's in here. And I love that you said that, you made it very clear. Okay. So we have, okay, we had, was it, did Trina get to say? Okay, Chris Lusk, you have something you wanted to share? Other than hello?
Hi. Well, I'm listening in here. This is all amazing stuff.
Okay. Okay, well, it's good to see you. Okay. Anyone else have
Good to see you.
Chris, do you still have something you want to share? No. Okay. All right. We have, I want to go on with the next one here that Michael just read, the bottom of 67. He who by progress has grown from the darkness, which is exactly what you said, Barbara. Okay. He who by progress has grown from the darkness lifted himself from the night into light. Free is he made of the halls of Amenti, free of the flower of light and of life. Guided he then by wisdom and knowledge, passes from men to the masters of life. Then he may dwell as one with the masters, free from the bonds of the darkness of night. Seated within the flower of radiance sit 7 lords from the space-times above us, helping and guiding through infinite wisdom, the pathway through time of the children of men. So when we start talking about our DNA, we have to look at the fact that the body itself is of the children of men. Okay, and that's what the Anunnaki gave us. Okay, but it is with the mind and the spirit that we are that we can move forward. I have had a lot of experience with people who are saying they're channels and that they actually feel they're channeling from other beings on other dimensions and everything. I believe that you all of us channel. I just believe that everyone doesn't actually punctuate it with announcing it or claiming or announcing whatever you want to give its name to. Because every time you have any particular situation happening in your life, you're being downloaded. We can prove that now. The science of technology can actually put people in a room that don't believe they're channeling, just believe they're thinking. And all of a sudden, there's beautiful stuff that they start thinking, and they don't know at that point. What they'll say is, okay, I don't know where this is coming from. Okay, so at that point, you know that they're not physically trying to say they're controlling it. But then they get wonderful things, reassurances and information and other stuff. So we all are plugged in, and it depends on us how much we let through, or even by our, maybe how healthy we are or how spiritually focused we are, whatever, that we actually get past the walls that's there and let it in. And so living in the unknown allows you just to accept that that can drop in and start communicating at any point. And then when we go down further below picture where he has here, we are living in a holographic matrix. We are the Sims, okay? Mighty and strange, they veiled with their powers, silent, all-knowing, drawing the light force, different yet one with the children of men. I, different and yet one with the children of light, custodians and watchers of the force of man's bondage, ready to loose when the light has been reached. That applies to us. Every one of you that have come to this call, I don't have any problem at all picking up on your energy, and know that if you directly knew something you could change that would stop suffering, that would stop children from being kidnapped, raped, or abused, that could actually say that no person on this planet needs to go hungry. If you know that you know something that you could do about that, you do it, and you're there. That's what we're saying, what Barbara's reflecting and holding the light. If you know you can do it, you will step up and do it. It's when we start with the denial of the value of ourselves, when we start making less of ourselves, that we figure it's not ours to do. And that's not right. That is ours to do. If you're subject to hearing it, and it's part of where you are, you're being asked to look at it and do something about it. And it doesn't mean to judge, be hateful, punish, hurt, harm, anything. It means to be complimentary and kind and loving and do the best of what love is that you know. And I think Toth explains that in every verse I've read. And I've gone through these tablets at least 7 times in my lifetime. And I've never found any of it to not say that we are here now to do exactly what is needed. And that we just need to trust that. Just need to trust it and move forward with it and show kindness and generosity whenever we can. And with that, we begin to liberate, free, and open up the light, that everybody becomes part of the light. Okay? Any comments on that at this time? Anybody else that would like to share something from the book? Steve Jones has something he would like to share.
Just with talking about our channeling and downloading, it just seems like with a lot of what we're talking about, the accepting, and when they're talking about the Sims is like a computer game where you're controlling little people and you're telling them what to do. So if we see ourselves as that, and we see ourselves as like, you know, when you're looking at the little person, you're like, what attributes does it have? Does it do this or does it do that? So I think our perception of accepting ourselves and what we have access to in the universe, like these things that are being channeled or downloaded to us, if we can accept, to the extent that we can accept what we can do is the extent that, you know, that we're going to allow it. So on was it 66, he was talking about Michael Talbot and the holographic universe, and in a lot of different ways. And he talks about the hologram where everything is in a hologram. If you break it, every piece contains the whole. And that's said in a lot of different ways. There's the holographic universe. You know, Harriman talks about how the energy in one proton is equal to the mass of the whole universe, and that there's no, when something happens to one particle, there's no time difference of it happening and affecting all the other particles. And so when we realize that every part of ourselves, that we have that massiveness of effect, that we can affect that, I just see that to be able to, and the part that I saw was really accepting it, changing the acceptance of who we are as a sim, of just this person going around in our 9 to 5 to a person that can affect that massiveness, and to really accept ourselves is just it's important. It struck me as important. Like, what do I need to do when I realize that the more I accept and can expand my belief of myself and my potential is really where I need to focus on that.
Yeah, It is. It's where we all need to focus. You're right on with that. Um, I'm going to open up because we're coming to pretty much, I don't know the time. Some of you here, please give me the time. We got 10 minutes or so before, okay. I want to bring us to page 69. And because there's a number of people who are on the call that are working and studying with me with numerology. And because with the sciences that I've learned and I can teach, I've been invited around the world to teach physics and the sciences, and the particular, what I call sacred geometry. And so here on 69, Thoth actually goes into saying, first and most mighty sits the veiled presence, Lord of Lords, the infinite nine. Over the other from each the lords of the cycles, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, each with his mission, each with his powers, guiding, directing the destiny of man. There sit they, mighty and potent, free of all time and space. It's talking about numerology. In the tablets, especially the tablets of which I've worked for so many years, okay, each frequency is given a number, and in each frequency it has certain elements and influences and outcomes. And so when we're looking at the number of something, even how we say what our age is, or how we measure a week or a month or whatever, when we begin to put those numbers in place, each one has a wave of its own energy, and it has its own definition and outcome. Okay, so when he's talking here, it actually is talking, he's doing more. I'd like you to look up more about that for our discussion next week. Let's look at whatever you can, and go on. You've got that magical Google, who is our mastermind of the world. We can Google anything and find any answer, right? So Google and ask, some information about that. And I would think, Melissa, because you have studied and have gotten very much of the Kabbalah there, you probably have a lot you could add into there about numerology. But any of you who have additional studies and knowledge on what could possibly be talking about here, why would be the importance of that, and how will we use that? What are we going to make of that? So I would like us to actually reach for that next week, okay? And I thank all of you for joining me today. It's been really a good experience. I would like to see that by next week, Margaret, we got Margaret there, we've got Larry, we've got Tom sitting up there, and some of you that I can see faces of that actually haven't shared anything with us yet. So please step up, and Eileen, you're there the same. There's some of you that would actually come back. If you don't have anything to add to it, ask some questions. If you're looking at it, and even if you come to something controversial and you see it totally different than what we're saying, or you're totally different from what our author is saying, I'm open to that. Let's hear it. Okay, it's about actually bringing things out that we can discuss. So it doesn't have to be true to the book, doesn't have to be true to anything anybody else is saying. You got something that you see different, please bring it to us. Meanwhile, you have a wonderful week. Be safe. I hear that around the world they're lifting some of the quarantines and restrictions of activities, and we're getting back to some kind of normalness in our lives. And I would say, but still know that viruses are viruses. They don't go away. They may become less active, but they don't ever go away. They are a natural part of us, okay? And for us to make sure we don't bring them into where they do become a problem, you want to keep washing your hands, keep your hands and fingers away from your face unless they're clean. Be very protective in knowing, and learn. Go on the internet, learn what a virus is. This COVID-19 virus is not going to go away because they say the curve of deaths is going away. It will become, as every virus is, a natural part of what we call flu season. And at that point, I hope that you're all maintaining some level of coherence as to how you're protecting yourself from that, so that as we open up for more interaction with other people in larger numbers, you know how to actually handle yourself. If you're shaking hands and you're touching things, Don't put your hands by your mouth. That's most of the way that they get in. If you're going someplace and there's certain bacterial levels of stuff, again, it's physical contact. Be safe. Know how to be safe and take care of yourself. And for that, I ask you to all have a wonderful week, and we'll check in with you next week. And this is Parisha, and we are exploring Emerald Tablets. OCO.